Hello and welcome back to all of the returning listeners. And if you're new here, well, we're glad you're joining us in this virtual world. Either way, y'all are tuning in to season 2 of Whether You Like It or Not, a Toronto-based podcast that started right out of Jane and Finch. I'm your host, Moody, a multi-ethnic Latina with many interests, as you'll learn through the episodes in this season. Join us in this safe, inclusive space as guests and I share meaningful experiences and engage in typically unspoken dialogues along with all sorts of babosadas. I think it's fair to say this is where we get comfortable with being a little uncomfortable, whether you like it or not. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Moody. So I'm excited to be recording this today. I don't even want to call this a podcast anymore because I feel like the way that I'm going about it lately is just picking up my handheld microphone and sharing a thought or two. That's how I'm feeling, and that's how I've been recording some of my material lately. So I guess whatever, we'll call it a podcast for the sake of calling it a podcast. But I'm really excited for a few reasons. The first reason being is I can literally feel my seasonal depression going away. Down, boy. Sorry, my dog, Anyways, for those of you who know. Okay, seasonal depression, it's a real thing up in the north, especially. The further you are away from the sun, the more fucking depressed you can possibly be. So I've been taking my vitamin D drops, really trying to battle and confront that aspect of the winter blues because I just can't deal. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to do shit, dude. I don't want to do shit. So when there's a little bit of sun, I get all excited. I'm really grateful that we've been getting some pretty decent warmer weather very unexpectedly. Like, there's been lawns in my neighborhood and whenever I'm driving around that I've come across that are fucking green, and they been green, dude. They're a little brown, but they're pretty much green for the most part. And I'm just like, what is happening? I'm concerned because of the earth, obviously, and global warming and just the catastrophic impacts that this is having. At the same time, I'm like, fuck, silver lining. We're getting weather that I don't think anybody really anticipated up in Toronto, and other parts of the world. And the other thing that I'm actually happy about and I'm excited for, and I feel like now it's really something that I'm taking in because the date is approaching. So we're in March 2024. It is the beginning of the month, and I am leaving to Australia next week. So I'm so excited because never in my dreams did I imagine that I would be going to Australia for work. I mean, I've been wanting to go to Australia since I was a kid, but ahora to be going for work for something that I was actively involved in, it's crazy. And I am attending the World Indigenous Cancer Conference. I'm pretty sure there is nothing bigger than this when it comes to Indigenous cancer care. So this is a pretty big freaking deal. I didn't really take it in. We've been, discussing this at work as a possible, a possibility, as of October, I think, of 2023. And then something else came up in Australia. So I was like, there's like 2 conversations going on that have to do with Australia. One of them being with the World Indigenous Cancer Conference, and the other being a meeting with a cancer center network in Melbourne as well. And so I was like, this keeps coming up. And then even within the last week or two, another conversation came up. Australia came up again. And I'm like, there's something in the air. So when we got word that our abstract had been approved or had been accepted and we received an invite to present, I was like, oh my God, this is so freaking cool. We get to go to Australia and present and share on this really, really great initiative that the team had a hand in collaboration with other hospitals in Toronto. And I was like, this is wonderful. Then my coworker, who's also my friend that I've mentioned on here before and that I love very much, She was like, I think you should present. I really do believe that you're capable. And honestly, hearing words like that from people that I work with and that I interact with often is really, I don't know what it is. It helps me with my imposter syndrome because I suffer from imposter syndrome, like heavy, 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 heavy. Not just in the workplace setting, but in other areas of my life. And so to have a little bit of relief in a sense in someone sort of, reaffirming me without even knowing that that's what they're doing, that I'm doing a decent job at the very minimum, is something that I don't take for granted and I don't take lightly. So your girl is presenting with her team at the World Indigenous Cancer Conference. I'm not looking forward to the flight. I will tell you that much. We're flying to LA, from LA to New Zealand to Australia. And one of those flights is like 13 hours long. And then on the way back, we have the same route, but backwards. And then a fucking 7 hour, I think it's like 8 hours. It's just under 8 hours layover in LA. So I'm like, ugh. Not looking forward to that, but I'm going to try to use up that time to go visit some family. A lot of my family is in California. I think I have more family in California and in the States than I do in Nicaragua. So that's interesting for me. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the adventure. I'm looking forward to spending time with my coworkers in a whole new freaking country, like for the first time visiting Australia. I'm looking forward to spending a week with my one coworker. We're going to be sharing an apartment together. So much going on. I'm looking forward to the excursions, and Australia apparently is known for their coffee. I'm looking forward to getting to know about new indigenous cultures. Like, it's like, I don't even know, seeing new animals like kangaroos and koala bears and fucking penguins up close and personal. I will not miss out on an opportunity like that. Like, I will not, even if I'm a little bit sleep deprived, because the time zone change, the jet lag, the travel time, all those things I know are gonna have me fucked up. But I'm gonna try my best to suck it up, because I don't know if I'll ever have another opportunity to go to Australia, whether it's work related or not. So there's that. My kids are turning 16 and 5. So for those of you who don't know, my son Alexander, he is turning 16 years old. And my daughter is turning 5 on March 27th. My babies, my only 2 babies in the entire world, my only 2 babies that I will ever have, here I go, crying again, are 11 years and 12 hours apart. My son was born at 1 in the morning and my daughter was born at 1 in the afternoon. It's funny how that works. I know 1000% these were meant to be my kids. And I'm a big believer in, destiny and things happening for a reason. And, our choices and our decisions lead us to different paths and different outcomes. And I am convinced that every decision that I have made have led me to be the mother of these 2 beautiful, intellectual, playful, funny ass human beings. And I will not take that for granted ever. I think I'm also a little extra emotional because my 4-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old, last night, I think she's mentioned it 2 more times other than yesterday in the last 2 weeks or so. She's been talking and asking a lot about death and dying and what happens after. And, she's even said, I don't want to grow up because I don't want to get old. I want to be a kid forever. And she's said things like, so when I have a daughter and I become a grandma, does that mean I'm going to die? And so we've had certain talks around it. Luch doesn't really feel like like he wants to get into all of that, but I think it's important. And with a little bit of encouragement, you know, he does participate in the conversations, but I can see for a lot of us how culturally there's conversations around death that we don't typically have, especially with children. They're often dismissed, and I got that a lot actually as a kid. BRB. Yo.
They called me to go in again.
Oh my God.
I'm about to go in.
Okay, so just stay with me on the phone for fuck's sakes. Okay, I'm back. I had to put a long ass pause because my son called me. He is in the process of submitting courses for grade 11, and it's so surreal to me that my baby, like my firstborn, my human, my baby boy, is turning 16 and is going to grade 11 in September. Wild. And that's a whole other topic of conversation that I need to find other moms who are in the same like process as me, or who have been in a similar process within the recent years, because it's hard to encourage your kids, I think, sometimes to take courses that they normally wouldn't take. But luckily Alex is excited about those suggestions that I made. You know, he finalized everything and is content with how his semesters are looking next year. So yay. But as I was saying, my children are growing and they are doing really cool things and have really cool interests. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm so incredibly grateful for that. They have health, they have homes. Alex has 2 homes. My daughter has 1, but they are safe in these environments. And honestly, in this world that we're living in these days, it is something that I don't ever want to take for granted. Something I don't ever want to complain about, something I want to be grateful for, and put it out into the world that this is something I am incredibly grateful for, because not all of us have I don't even want to call it a privilege, because I think it's a basic human right to have safety and know what that is, and for our kids to also have that, and, you know, be able to sleep peacefully at night and not struggle to find a meal and not live in a war-torn country. I brought my whole mood down a moment ago by thinking about this, but I really want to emphasize and focus on the things that are important. I want to focus on the wins. I want to focus, of course, on the things that are unjust and are incredibly unfair and fucking inhumane, like what's happening in Palestine, that shit, and what's happening in the Congo, what's happening in Yemen, like all these things I think about. It really, really puts into perspective how much privilege we have, and we don't even realize it. Of course, we have our own struggles and we have the shit that we got to deal with, but I really don't think that it's so grave compared to what other people are going through across the globe. And so I really want to focus on keeping my kids happy and making sure that my kids feel loved and are content with what they have and are grateful for what they have. Sometimes they act spoiled, but that's on me. I think that's on me and their dads, and we love them so much. We want to fucking spoil them and give them everything and do everything. But I think sometimes that can be counterproductive and more harmful than we think. But anyway, so I've mentioned Australia. I've mentioned the weather. I've mentioned my kids' birthdays, and I came across an article that was written a few days ago. I don't know if y'all heard of this migrant worker who is from Guatemala. He is of Mayan descent, so he is indigenous. His name is Virgilio Aguilar Mendez, and he was arrested back in May of 2023. He's 19 years old. Again, he's a migrant worker, and he was accused, and they were trying to fucking criminally charge him for supuestamente causing the death of a deputy and a police officer who suffered a heart attack right after he basically unlawfully attacked Virgilio. So the name of the police officer, I can't remember his name. Michael Kunovich in Florida. So he was charged, Virgilio was charged with aggravated manslaughter of an officer and resisting an officer without violence. So apparently, last week, Friday, the state attorney's office dropped the charges. They announced this. Virgilio is in the U.S. illegally. He is in federal custody. And now he's going to go through a deportation hearing. But all things considered, at least he's not going to be fucking in jail. It isn't fair the way that he was approached. I think they should fucking probably just let him live his fucking life and go through a process to be able to apply for refugee status or whatever it is. Like, give the dude the supports that he needs, because there was a whole conversation around this case because he, first of all, I think was being searched illegally. They used force on him for absolutely no reason. He was sitting outside of a motel, if I'm not mistaken, or like sitting outside of like a residential area, a stay, let's just say, his residence. And this Michael Kunovich approached him, and Virgilio told him, "Sorry, I don't speak English." Michael attempted to search Virgilio's pockets. So he attempted to search his person. They forced him onto the ground. I guess backup was called. He did resist, even though he had been tased many times. And then after this whole kerfuffle happened, Michael, from my understanding, I'm taking moments of pause here because I don't want to give the wrong information. I don't want to give the wrong backstory. But apparently the police officer collapsed and he was taken to the hospital, and then he died of a heart attack. In my mind, I was like, well, that's karma. That is just the karmic universe giving you a taste of your own fucking medicine. Obviously, it didn't have to go to the extent of dude dying. I think that it was an unfortunate outcome. However, I am very, very happy to read that the charges against Virgilio were dropped. The evidence turned out to be unsustainable. I was like, wow, this is beautiful, because a lot of people who are coming into the US and Canada and so on, so many of them have a language barrier, whether it's Spanish, whether it's an indigenous language like Maya. I can't remember what language he spoke, but it is an indigenous language. He is indigenous and he came from Guatemala, and he's not able to respond to what the officer was asking him because of this language barrier. So he didn't have the ability to comprehend what was being said to him. You know, his cultural background is very different, and then I think there was some concerns about his intellectual capacity, and this was brought up a couple times, and so I'm like, it's a good story. It's a bittersweet story, obviously, because the officer lost his life, but at the same time, somebody wasn't punished unjustly, I don't think. So yeah, I was like, wow, this is so great to hear. I remember signing a petition. I remember sharing the petition. I remember being so infuriated and thinking this is so fucking unfair. So to see that this was the outcome, unfortunately, he does face deportation charges, but that's besides the fact. He still has in some sense, his freedom. So I hope there is an organization out there helping this young man out, and very grateful to hear that he is not in jail for murder. So anyways, those were some of the highlights, I think, today for me that really stood out. And I just kind of wanted to share that because I feel like a lot of the times we can end up focusing on negatives and on like, oh, this sucks, and just complain and whine and moan and blah, blah, blah. And I'm really internally trying to make sure that I am finding ways to be grateful and mindful of what I'm putting out into the world and what I'm allowing myself to feed into. Naturally, I'm always grateful for my kids and their well-being, but there's more to that, right? There's more. I'm a human. I'm a woman. I'm a person outside of being a mom. So I need to kind of look beyond that lens and outside of that role, because I'm finding that that's how we end up losing ourselves. Is just we focus on motherhood once we have kids a lot of the times. And this is something that has come up in conversation with friends of mine and family members and things like that. So I'm not speaking for everybody. It's just what I am finding is common within my circle, within myself, is we focus so much on being a good mom and like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Being a good partner, being a good daughter. If you are the oldest, then you have the oldest daughter syndrome, so it's a lot to take on, I think, as a person, especially, if you fucking add other things into that, the stressors of life and what comes with that. Working a 9 to 5, being an entrepreneur, wanting to do a great job in these things and having a side hustle or passion projects that we participate in, or, giving back to the community, volunteering, all these things, it's exhausting and contribute to burnout. So I just really want to find ways to take care of myself. And I think that's going to start with my mental and start from shifting my perspective and focusing on things that are outside of motherhood. I love being a mom, but I want to feel like me again. And I think this is just sort of the beginning process of that for me. Anyways, y'all, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm trying to keep this episode short. I'm trying to keep them concise, and I don't want to ramble. I don't want to cut into other topics of conversation, because then I'm not going to be left with anything to talk about. So I hope y'all have a great week ahead, a great weekend ahead. I hope we are stepping into spring with an extra pep in our steps, and that we are enjoying the warmer weather and also trying to do our part when it comes to keeping the environment, keeping ourselves accountable to the environment and the land. Anyways, see you in the next episode.